Hey, guess what? I'm going on a trip to Japan, and I know you might not care about some random dude going on a trip, but listen, this has been like a lifelong dream destination of mine since my childhood. I grew up playing so many Japanese video games, watching anime, and I'm just generally like a history buff, so I'm really looking forward to this trip. Also, I love Japanese food. I'm probably gonna gain like 10 pounds eating everything in sight. But real talk, I also thought it might be a good time to see what is in my travel bag, the tech that I use in my bag to get work done, have fun, power my products, and stay entertained on long flights, which believe me, I'm going to need. It's like a 14-hour flight. I don't know what I signed up for. Now, in truth, this whole video concept is really based around the bag, and for my bag, this is something I use almost every day to carry my tech. So this goes beyond just like traveling and vacation. And it's a really nice backpack. It's a Brevite Jumper photo backpack. It's pretty minimalist for a backpack, and it comes in a color that I think would suit like anyone's personality. I got mine in Nimbus Gray because I have no personality, or I guess I should probably say I like minimalist design. What's the difference? But I really like this color a lot, and I think it's a pretty sharp looking backpack. I feel like it definitely separates itself from the sea of usual backpacks that I see people carrying around on a daily basis. Now, I didn't get this thing just for looks. Believe me, I don't need that. I'm already handsome, so I don't need something else to look good, right? I got it because it's also functional. So if we open it up, you can see that the inside of this is padded and has separate padded dividers with Velcro that you can arrange and attach so I can fit in my camera gear, some lenses, and accessories. What I really like though is that you have multiple ways to access your camera and gear. So you can open this up completely from like the front to kind of get like a top-down view of everything, or you can even use this separate side zipper to just quickly grab your camera, and there's also a separate top pocket to store some smaller items as well. There's also a front pocket, which is super helpful for carrying accessories. You have 4 separate mesh pockets in here, which I absolutely love for throwing in external drives, battery packs, SD cards, chargers, and even for storing my phone. It all works very perfectly in here. And there's also a dedicated laptop sleeve right in the back. You have a separate side pocket here for storing something like a water bottle, and just above that, you kind of have like this little small compartment. It's almost like a secret compartment. I think you're supposed to store like your passport in here, but for me, I just keep an air tag in there so I can always keep track of where my backpack is. So don't even think about trying to steal this backpack. Oh, wait, I just showed you where I put the air tag. Ah! Now I'm gonna have to find somewhere else to put it so you don't take it out and then steal my backpack. Darn. All right, I gave you a main overview of the bag, but let's deconstruct it. So let's start with my main workhorse in this bag, my 14-inch MacBook Pro. Out of every laptop that I have ever owned, this is by far my favorite laptop. It is almost perfect, and it balances power, battery life, portability, and just has like a bunch of useful ports and everything on it, and also has some really nice hardware specs. It's got like a mini LED display, so you can edit HDR video if you want to. It gets super bright for that display, which is great for outdoor use. And it even comes like a great pair of speakers. So like if you're in like the hotel room alone, you're watching content, this thing is just an absolute great laptop. That's why I tend to use this MacBook Pro, just a really good balance of everything, and way more portable than something like a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and more powerful than something like an M2 MacBook Air. As for my specs that I have for my configuration, let me go over them. You might be surprised to know that Greg's Gadgets isn't using an M2 chip. No, I'm still on the M1, and it's an M1 Max. So this laptop has already seen over a year of use, and it is holding up beautifully. So for my specs, I have it equipped with the top M1 Max chip for faster render times, 64 gigabytes of unified memory to have multiple professional apps open at once or ensuring ultimate smoothness in my Final Cut Pro timeline, and I put 4 terabytes of storage on this so I can edit large video files on the go locally and not have to entirely rely on external drives, which was my initial plan. But when you deal with a lot of video files, it isn't if you run out of storage, it's when. So I do need to pack external SSD drives into my bag as well. So for an external SSD, I'm looking for something that's gonna be relatively speedy, but also relatively cheap. So for this one that I'm using right now, it's a SanDisk external drive. It connects via USB-C, and This drive right now and the Samsung T7 are by far the best values that I have found so far for external SSD drives. Both of them get around 1000 read and write speeds, and they come in at a pretty good price, and they're frequently on discount, so whichever one's cheaper at the time is the one I'll usually pick up. And these are both 4 terabyte drives, so they store a ton of video files on them and just a bunch of other files as well. So that is kind of crazy. Look how small these are. These things are so tiny, so small. 4 terabytes of storage, easily connects to the MacBook Pro. These are definitely a go-to if you have to work with a lot of storage. Pick these up. Now, another item in my bag, or maybe not really my bag, I mean, technically it might sometimes be in my bag, is my iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, technically it's probably gonna be in my pocket, right? But it is the phone I use, and it's an essential part of my trips, as it is for anyone. So obviously, I'm going to be using this thing to stay in contact with people through messages, email, and stay connected on social media through apps like Twitter or Instagram. And I also plan to use features like the Dynamic Island to keep track of my Uber ride to the airport, and for flight statuses through an app called Flighty. Of course, the main reason I went with the bigger iPhone 14 Pro Max is for all-day battery life. But even this thing, which usually does get me through a full day of usage no problem, is not going to hold up on these long trips. Like, you're constantly using maps, getting directions, taking countless photos and videos. You're on your phone a lot during these trips, and it's why I always keep a MagSafe battery pack in my bag as well, just in case my iPhone runs out of power. I have a super easy way to extend the battery life without any other cables or wires. I can just plop this MagSafe battery pack on the back of my iPhone as I'm going about my day, don't need to slow down, and just plop it on, juices it up, and you're good to go. Another trusty travel companion that's technically not in the bag, it's on my wrist, is my Apple Watch Ultra. So not only do I just generally like wearing an Apple Watch, I wear one every day no matter what model it is, but for me, the Ultra is kind of essential on longer trips because it has the longest battery life in any Apple Watch. So I know that no matter what I do to this thing, it will be unkillable on a long flight, and I can probably even wear this thing for multiple days without really worrying about having to charge it. This thing is like a secondary lifeline. If something happens to my phone, please don't happen, don't knock on wood. If something happens to my phone, I have this thing to give me peace of mind so I can still stay in contact with the people on my trip, or get in contact with like emergency services or something like that. I hope I don't have to do that, but it's peace of mind. Also, there's a lot of great watch faces, which are really useful for traveling, and some really good complications that you can throw on here. Even something as simple as setting a world clock complication so I can see the time in Tokyo before I leave my trip. And then as I land in Tokyo, I can then set that to like the New York time zone. And then I can see what the time is back home. Makes it really useful for when you're trying to contact people back home. You don't want to like send them a text message at like 3 in the morning. Now for travel, a phone is great, but I do usually like to take a bigger screen on the airplane, and in some of those smaller seats, sometimes it really isn't the best to use a laptop, especially if someone's like leaning back and like, you know, pushing the seat into the laptop lid. Like, that's so annoying. So I usually like to bring a tablet along, and this time I'm planning to bring my iPad mini because it's small enough to fit into the top compartment of this bag. The iPad mini in general, I find, is really great for travel overall. Like, I can download a ton of movies onto this device to watch on the plane, and I also think it's a great form factor for reading, unlike some of the other bigger iPads. The iPad mini, again, fits into this bag really easily in the upper zipper compartment, whereas if I was traveling with something like my bigger iPad Pro, I would probably have to store that in the laptop sleeve with my MacBook Pro, and I can do it, but it's just a little bit tighter. And I really feel like this is just a great travel tablet because of its smaller size. And then I like to take things like the Apple Pencil along with me in case I want to like jot down some notes or something like that. And then also, I really love Apple's smart cover. I think it's like a smart cover folio they're calling it now, but whatever, the smart cover accessory that they sell for all of their iPads. Where it kind of opens up like this, attaches magnetically to the back of the iPad, and this is just a super super slim and protective case for the iPad. Kind of feels like you're carrying just like a mini journal or a mini book along with you, and keeps my iPad protected so I can just kind of throw it in there in my bag with other things. Because in this other compartment as well is also another thing, which is also in its own little compartment here because I'm really paranoid about damaging the screen. And that is my trusty Nintendo Switch. Now, this is the OLED model of the Nintendo Switch, which has a fantastic display. Usually I bring this with me on longer flights and try to play through a couple games. The last game I was playing on here was Pokemon Violet, but I already finished that, so I'm gonna have to find something else to play on this trip. Maybe I should brush up on The Legend of Zelda before Tears of the Kingdom come out, or maybe I should finally finish Metroid. But either way, this thing is going to be a lifesaver on that 14-hour flight and waiting for long periods of times in the airport terminals. Of course, a lot of these devices are going to be next to useless if I can't hear them, and in my bag is always, I always bring this with me, a pair of AirPods Pro. This is the 2nd gen version of AirPods Pro, and I love these things. They are always in my ear, and the noise cancellation on them is surprisingly good for their size. I have traveled with these already a bunch, and the noise cancellation is good enough to cancel out the loud jet engine on a plane or some kid crying in the other seat, to the point where I'm not actually sure if I'm going to pack a dedicated pair of headphones. And we already spent so long talking about everything else, we haven't even touched the camera yet that's in this bag. Now listen, if you don't carry a camera, I know not everyone's carrying a dedicated camera, especially nowadays when our phones take such excellent pictures. I believe this Brevite bag does have options that don't have like the extra camera padding or dividers, but if you do, this is actually really useful. But for me, I need these compartments to store my camera, which is currently an A7S III. I've been using this camera for a few years now, and it has held up extremely well with its specs that I really haven't found a good reason to replace it yet. This is the longest I've ever kept a video camera. It shoots up to 4K, 124 frames per second, has amazing autofocus, has 2 card slots, a flip out screen, a USB-C port, which is great for travel because you can just charge this along with a lot of the other accessories I'm bringing, like my Nintendo Switch or my iPad. So just bring one cable and you could charge everything with that. The one downside with this camera though is it's really only meant for video. And while it can take pictures, and it can take some good pictures, the resolution is pretty low. It's only a 12 megapixel resolution because it really is just meant for video. But you know, in a tough situation, you can get a picture. But if I gotta be honest with you, in hindsight, if I could do it all over again, I think I'd most likely buy an FX3 over this, which has more features for a dedicated video camera. But the one thing I really do like about the A7S III is it does have an electronic viewfinder, which is really helpful for when you're shooting outside in bright environments and really need to see what's on the screen. And that's something the FX3 doesn't have. So that is one feature that I do really like about this camera, but they're very similar cameras using like the same sensors and the same specs. It's just for some reason, Sony, they give updates to the FX3, and it's like they forgot this camera existed. But hopefully I can get some really nice video quality on my trip to Japan with this camera. Obviously, as a YouTuber, video is more important to me than pictures. And usually, you know, I like taking photos with a dedicated camera, but a lot of the times, I gotta say, I just use my iPhone because it's just so much easier and it's always on me. So I'm kind of bad in that way that, yeah, I'm like most people, right? I'm probably gonna be using my iPhone to take video and photos. Okay, that's pretty much the main gear in my bag, but I also have a few accessories that go along with it, which I keep in this compartment here. Now, again, we have a lot of tech in this bag, but it's gonna be useless if we don't have a way to charge it, which is why I usually have to carry like a charging brick. And for a tech travel bag where I'm trying to slim down on things, I like to just keep one charging brick that can charge everything. So for that, I am using a Ugreen 4-in-1. It's a 100-watt charging brick. It has 3 USB-C ports and then 1 USB-A port. So I can pretty much plug every device I have into this. And with 100 watts of charging, it can pretty much charge everything with just this one power brick. And then if I do need to fast charge something like really quickly, I could just plug in one device like my MacBook Pro. Has 100 watts, so it's definitely capable of fast charging even a bigger device like that. I really do recommend picking up like a different power brick than, I mean, the phone companies don't even give you a power brick anymore, but you know, even like my Nintendo Switch power brick or the Sony camera power brick, I recommend getting something like this instead. Get something that uses GaN technology because it's going to be smaller than like a traditional, if this was like a regular 100-watt power brick, this would be huge, but for for 100 watts, this is actually pretty small. So get something like that, put it in your bag, make sure it has a lot of ports on it. You just need one thing, you can charge everything with it. It's great. Another charging accessory I do not travel without is the MagSafe Duo charger. This thing got so much hate when it was released, and while there's definitely better options for at-home charging, for when you're traveling, when you're on the go, I have yet to find anything that folds up as nicely as this in this compact form factor. It takes up very little space in the bag. It has strong MagSafe connections for my iPhone and then a separate Apple Watch charging puck that can either lay flat or be propped up to charge, which is super helpful in a hotel room to use as like a mini bedside alarm clock. For content creation on trips, I also pack in these Rode wireless microphones. They both work as either like a wireless microphone transmitter for like better microphones, or they just actually have microphones built into them if you want to use them like that. These are dead simple, very hassle-free compared to a lot of other audio setups that would require more gear to connect like a higher powered microphone. So I like these a lot. They're not the best audio quality in the world, but I mean, like for like traveling, for on the go, for run and gun stuff, these things are amazing. And yes, they charge with USB-C, so it fits into this tech bag pretty nicely. iPhone, one day you will get USB-C. Okay, there's also a couple other little things. We already covered the external drives that I keep in here, but next to those external drives is also like a couple SD cards. Obviously, one of them is in my camera right now, so I can't show you that. But for these, I am using the Lexar V90 SD cards. They're like 128 gigabytes each, but they're pretty fast. They do like 300 megabyte read and write speeds, so they can transfer footage very quickly into my laptop. And then also, they support higher quality video codecs on my camera, and then also the faster 120 frame rate on my A7S III if I need to use it. We also have this little MC Lite from Aperture, which can either be charged wirelessly or through USB-C. It kind of acts like either like a little accent light, like if you want to throw this up somewhere, use it as like an accent light in the background in like a boring hotel, or you can even use it as like a tiny key light in desperate situations. And it even like changes color and stuff. So it's really cool as an accessory for video making and filmmaking, all that stuff. Really like these things, super small. Actually put out a pretty decent amount of light for their size. Of course, you can't leave home without your Apple polishing cloth. This $20 cloth is amazing. It'll solve all your life's problems, let me tell you. Okay, honestly, it's a pretty expensive cloth. It cleans my MacBook screen and my iPhone screen. Get the dust off there for shooting B-roll, honestly. Otherwise, it usually doesn't bother me all too much. But hey, you should probably keep like a cleaning cloth in your bag too. If you want to get like the Apple polishing cloth, have a status symbol like me. Maybe stick it in like your pocket or something like that. This doesn't have a pocket, but maybe it could. But yeah, it's useful. Oh, another accessory, one that used to be critical for me, was something like this. This is a USB-C adapter, and it has like a bunch of other ports on it. So you have 2 USB-A ports, an SD card slot, a micro SD card slot, another USB-C port, an HDMI port, and then an Ethernet port on the back. Now, obviously, this used to be more critical when my MacBook Pro didn't have a lot of these ports, but now it does, right? It has like the SD card slot and HDMI port built into the device. But one thing it doesn't have is an Ethernet port. So this Ugreen adapter, I still pack it in my bag just in case I need like a hardwire Ethernet connection. Even though it is rare, it is nice to have in case you need it. But then if your setup has something like an older MacBook that only has the USB-C ports, or even like a current gen MacBook Air, this is a super helpful device. You don't have to get the Ugreen one. You can get like any brand that sells these. It's just a really nice way to add ports onto your laptop that it doesn't usually have. Like if you're in a situation, especially when you're traveling and you need to connect something to your laptop, and you don't have these ports, you're kind of like in like a bad situation. So it's always good to have something like this in your bag, even though nowadays I usually don't use them. But yeah, I believe we went through everything in my whole tech bag. So hopefully you found something useful here for your own setup. If you did find anything you want to learn more about or you want to purchase for yourself, I left affiliate links in the description so you can find them very easily. But also let me know in the comments below, are there any essentials in your tech bag that I missed in mine that I should add to my setup? Let me know, because I'm always looking for recommendations. And also, don't forget to follow me on social media if you're interested in my escapades in Tokyo. Check out my Twitter, check out my Instagram. Listen, I'm really excited for this trip. So thank you all for watching this. And yeah, make sure you like the video, make sure you're subscribed, because maybe there'll be like an update. Maybe there'll be like a video or some like exclusive content from Japan. I think that would be really cool. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.